Has the Lost Symbol TV show finally revealed a real Masonic ritual after centuries of secrecy? Find out next on Symbols and Secrets. Wow. I have literally just finished watching this week's episode of The Lost Symbol on Peacock. You can go to peacocktv.com right now and watch, or you can download the Peacock TV app in your app store and watch The Lost Symbol. You really should check it out. It's the show we're following along with, and that's what Symbols and Secrets is all about. We're following along Dan Brown's The Lost Symbol, which is streaming now on Peacock TV. I'm Maynard Edwards, 32nd degree KCCH, Scottish Rite Freemason. And here on Symbols and Secrets, we're going to go through each episode of the show. We're going to pull out some of those Masonic symbols and secrets, and we're going to talk about what they mean in the show and then what they mean in real life. And sometimes those two things are the same, and sometimes Hollywood has had a little fun with some of our symbols, and sometimes Hollywood has had a little bit of fun just making things up entirely and saying they're Masonic when they're actually not. Either way, the show is fantastic, but we want to explain it, break it down for all of our friends and brothers out there watching. Please subscribe to the video, please like the video, and please share the video with your friends. And also share the Lost Symbol TV show because it's really great. Our friend Dan Brown, it's based on his best-selling novel, The Lost Symbol, and we really are enjoying seeing it come to life on the screen after so many years. Episode 3 is entitled Murmuration, and the tagline is, with the CIA hot on their trail, Robert and Catherine turn to Nunez for help, and Sato interrogates Bellamy. That was my best voiceover voice there. Of course, Bellamy is the architect of the Capitol, and I actually just had a sit down with the historian of the Grand Lodge of Washington, D.C. of Masons, and we're going to talk all about the Capitol in an upcoming video and the position of the architect of the Capitol, which Mr. Bellamy is portraying in the Lost Symbol television show. Getting into this week's episode, 5 minutes in, we get a nice shot of the Leviathan symbol there as Bellamy is being interrogated. I wanted to bring this up last week, and I saved it because that was so full of things. I wanted to just wait until we had a little breather, and now's the time. Bellamy on several occasions has referred to the Freemasons as this big collective, as though we're some homogenous unit that all acts together. Every state in the country, and pretty well every country in the world, has its own Grand Lodge, and those Grand Lodges are sovereign from one another. So there's no one head of all Freemasons in the world. There's no one controlling mission or one authoritative body that tells us all what to do. We all have the same customs. We have things that we recognize about one another. We have the same traditions. We teach the same basic philosophies. But, you know, Masonry in Washington, D.C. is going to be just a little bit different than Masonry in Texas or in California or in England or in Africa or wherever else Freemasonry happens to be. It's always going to be a little bit different. So this idea that Bellamy has mentioned a couple of times, that Freemasons are this one group with this common mission and goal and purpose, is not exactly the truth. And while we are all good men with a good philosophy who are trying to improve ourselves and trying to improve the world around us, there's no secret mission. I know there's a few people who came here looking for that. There isn't one. Sorry to disappoint you. At about the 7-minute mark, Catherine Solomon and Robert Langdon enter into a discussion about some of the things that Peter Solomon, who's Catherine's father and Robert's mentor, has said about Freemasonry. And one of those is the statement that Freemasonry is a system of morality veiled in allegory. Now that is something that Masons actually do say. We teach people to build themselves up. As Masons, as Freemasons, just like a stonemason would build things out of stone, as Freemasons, we are trying to build ourselves to be better than we were before. And when we say it's veiled in allegory, we use certain symbols to teach those things. And those symbols are scattered throughout this television show. They're all over our buildings. I've got one on my arm here. So when we say veiled in allegory, that's meaning that we're using those symbols to teach those lessons. So Freemasonry as a system of morality veiled in allegory, that is absolutely something that Masons say, and the show has got that spot on. At the 14-minute mark, we smack into something that looks like, for all the world, it is a Masonic initiation ritual. I'm not going to give you any of the specifics because, as I have promised in the past, no spoilers on Symbols and Secrets in regards to the TV show. This looks like it's supposed to be a Masonic initiation ritual. But here's what I will say about it. While there are elements of this that I recognize as being an effort to look like a Masonic initiation ritual, there is way more wrong with this Masonic initiation ritual that they're showing than there is right. So while I understand from a storytelling point of view that's what's supposed to be happening in this scene, that is not what it really looks like. And first and foremost, it's this creepiness with the cloaks and things like that. That's not a thing. In most lodges, Masons, when they're performing rituals, are wearing tuxedos. And if they're not in tuxedos, they're certainly in business clothes. So I don't know where these guys are going to get these things. If there's a, like a cloak mart, or if they're going off to Harry Potter World to pick these things up, or a Halloween shop or whatever. But that's pure Hollywood. That's not part of Freemasonry. And although I understand that as a storytelling element, that's what's going on here, this is not a Masonic ritual. There's nothing about this that really resembles a Masonic initiation ritual. I will say there is one symbol here that is Masonic, and that is the floor. The checkerboard pattern on the floor is something that is found in many Masonic lodges, and that is supposed to be a representation of the ground floor of King Solomon's temple, which you can find out about in the Bible. 18 minutes and 30 seconds into episode number 3 of Dan Brown's The Lost Symbol, we are met with the name Ezra Dove, and he is allegedly a very prominent Freemason, and he's buried at the very historic and famous Oaken Hill Cemetery in Washington, D.C. I actually had to look this up. There is no Ezra Dove, and there is no Oaken Hill Cemetery. Ezra Dove is a name entirely made up by the writers, producers, and Dan Brown. And Oaken Hill Cemetery, I'm guessing, is meant to be Oak Hill Cemetery, or a reasonable facsimile thereof, if you will. Oak Hill Cemetery is a very famous cemetery in Washington, D.C., and there are a few prominent Freemasons buried there. Edward Stanton, who was Abraham Lincoln's Secretary of War. Jefferson Davis is there. However, Jefferson Davis, if you look it up, you'll see that there are a lot of people who say he was a Mason, a lot of people who say he wasn't. He says he wasn't. He wrote a letter somewhere to someone and basically said, "No, I never was a Mason." And that's an exact quote. So Jefferson Davis, although many sources might count him as a Freemason, he is not. Albert Pike was buried there. He's currently entombed at the House of the Temple. We'll talk about Albert Pike in another episode of Symbols and Secrets. So Oak Hill Cemetery is a real place, and there are a few prominent Masons buried there. Oaken Hill Cemetery exists only in Hollywood, and Ezra Dove, again, is only a figment of the imagination of the writers, producers, and directors of The Lost Symbol. The next mention of Freemasonry in the 3rd episode of The Lost Symbol is from Warren Bellamy, architect of the Capitol, who's sitting down with Agent Sato of the CIA, and she's questioning him and goes through this ruse of turning off the cameras, and it's just the two of us. You can trust me, buddy. And tries to get him to go into the stories and deeply held Masonic secrets. I want to address that specifically. I don't like to use the term secret when it comes to Freemasonry. I prefer the term private because secret denotes something nefarious in most people's mind, and really it's not a secret. Most of what we talk about, most of what we teach in a Masonic lodge, and by most I mean like 80 to 90% of what we discuss and what we teach in terms of Masonic philosophy, is taken right from the Bible. And I don't mean some special Masonic Bible. I mean the same Bible that you probably have in your house if you're a Christian, and certainly very much resembles the Old Testament and certain elements of the Quran as well. So to say that there are these deeply held Masonic secrets, it's just not the truth. And beyond that, the true secret of Freemasonry is that interaction from brother to brother through our shared experience and through our shared commitment to developing ourselves. And so I prefer the term private, because what we're doing is not a secret that we're trying to keep people away from, but it's an intercommunication between brothers of the lodge, and it's private between us, just like a conversation with you and a family member, just like a conversation between two very dear friends, just like a lot of other things in life. You know, when you go into the bathroom, what's happening there is not a secret, but it certainly is private. And taking a step back for a moment in terms of how secret Masonry is, I mean, we've got emblems on our cars, we've got emblems on our buildings, we've got, I mean, the buildings are huge. I mean, the House of the Temple itself, I mean, it's a 200-foot tall pyramid in the middle of Washington, D.C. If we're trying to be secret, we're doing a terrible job. I'm not the only Mason who's tatted up. There's a lot of us out there. And so if we're trying to have a very secret society, we are failing miserably, because first of all, there's a TV show. Second of all, History Channel has a new special every other week. There's a bunch of things on YouTube. The newspapers print ads for when Masonic meetings are being held. If you go into a small town in most places that has a Masonic lodge, the lodge puts up a big sign, says when their meetings are and where to find them. So if a new guy is coming into town, he knows where to find it. So if it's all supposed to be secret, why isn't it all very secret? So just bear that in mind as you hear these things. This is fun. This is great for the story. It's just not something that bears out in reality. Before I show you the last image from this show, I want to give you just a second to jump off, because this image, if you've not watched, this could spoil a little bit. This was in one of the trailers. It's just a quick snapshot. I'm not going to explain it beyond pointing out the symbols. So if you need to bail out, take a second. Okay, everybody's back. Good. I want to show you this image. It's one of the last images of the show, of episode 3. And it is this Tri-scallion image there, drawn in red, obviously supposed to be blood. And in episode 2, Agent Sato says, oh, the Tri-scallion is a very important Masonic symbol. And if you go back to that episode review, you'll see that I've asked a gazillion people, while the Tri-scallion is used throughout history in many different ways and by many, many different groups, the one group that's never used it is Freemasons. Again, it was used in an episode of Star Trek, but Freemasons have pretty well stayed away from that one. So this symbol, as it's being used and being told it's a Masonic symbol, is in fact not a Masonic symbol. So enjoy this as part of the show, but in reality, it's just not something that Masons use or have attached any particular symbolism to. So did I miss anything? Is there a symbol you need me to go back to? Is there something that we have discussed that you have some questions about? You can drop your comment below, or you can send me a message, podcast@scottishrite.org. Coming up, we have got some really great stuff. I had a very lengthy discussion with my friend Chris, who is the historian for the Grand Lodge of DC, and we talked about the U.S. Capitol and its Masonic connections. We talked about the architect of the Capitol and the Masonic connections there. And we also talked about the Smithsonian Institution. And we delve a little bit more into our thoughts regarding Masonry being a secret society and what exactly that means. So all of that's coming up on Symbols and Secrets. Brethren, if you're watching, share this video, subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. It helps me out a great deal. And I can't thank you enough for tuning into Symbols and Secrets and tuning into The Lost Symbol on Peacock TV.